Two nations, one history, a bitter legacy. India and Pakistan, once a single land under British rule, now stand divided by borders, bloodshed, and decades of unresolved conflict. For over 75 years, these neighbors have been entangled in war, diplomacy, betrayal, and fragile hope. This is not just a story of political rivalry. It's about people, land, identity, and pain that echoes through generations. Welcome to one of the most complex and dangerous rivalries in the world. This is the story of the India-Pakistan conflict. In August 1947, after nearly 200 years of British colonial rule, the Indian subcontinent was split in two. India was to be secular, with a Hindu majority. Pakistan was created as a homeland for Muslims, divided into East and West. The partition was rushed and poorly planned. Violence erupted almost immediately. Trains full of refugees were attacked. Families torn apart. Cities burned. Over 15 million people were displaced, and more than 1 million lost their lives. Among the unresolved issues stood Kashmir, a princely state with a Muslim majority but a Hindu ruler. The Maharaja hesitated to choose between India and Pakistan, but when Pakistani tribal forces invaded, he sought India's help and signed the Instrument of Accession. India sent troops. Pakistan retaliated. The First Indo-Pak War had begun. By 1949, a UN-mediated ceasefire divided Kashmir into two, controlled separately by India and Pakistan. But there was no peace, only a fragile line of control and deepening distrust. In 1965, Pakistan launched Operation Gibraltar, sending soldiers disguised as locals into Indian-administered Kashmir to incite rebellion. India responded with full military force. For 17 days, both countries engaged in brutal combat across the Western Front. Cities were bombed. Thousands of soldiers and civilians were killed. Eventually, the Soviet Union and the US pushed for a ceasefire. The Tashkent Agreement was signed. No territory was exchanged, and both nations claimed victory. But the seeds of further conflict had been sown. By 1971, Pakistan faced internal turmoil. In East Pakistan, present-day Bangladesh, calls for independence grew louder. The Pakistani military cracked down brutally. Millions of refugees fled to India. In response, India intervened. Within 2 weeks, India launched a full-scale war. On December 16, 1971, 90,000 Pakistani soldiers surrendered. A new nation, Bangladesh, was born. This was Pakistan's most devastating defeat. India emerged as a regional power. In 1999, just months after both countries tested nuclear weapons, Pakistani soldiers and militants infiltrated Indian territory in the Kargil sector of Kashmir. Caught off guard, India launched Operation Vijay to drive them out. What followed was high-altitude warfare in the Himalayas. Hundreds of lives were lost. Under international pressure, especially from the US, Pakistan was forced to pull back. It was a costly misadventure that once again brought two nuclear-armed nations to the brink. Kashmir remains the heart of the conflict. India accuses Pakistan of training and arming militants. Pakistan accuses India of brutal repression and denying Kashmiris their rights. In '98, both nations shocked the world by testing nuclear weapons. Suddenly, the stakes were higher than ever. US President Bill Clinton called South Asia the most dangerous place on Earth. Now, every skirmish, every act of terrorism risked escalating into nuclear war. This mutual nuclear capability has acted as a deterrent, preventing full-scale wars. But it hasn't brought peace. Kashmir is still divided. Curfews, insurgencies, crackdowns, and cross-border shelling continue. For millions of Kashmiris, life remains uncertain. In recent decades, terrorism has further poisoned relations. On November 26, 2008, 10 terrorists from Pakistan-based group Lashkar-e-Taiba attacked Mumbai. They killed 166 people. India was outraged. Despite international pressure, Pakistan denied involvement. Then in 2019, a suicide bomber targeted Indian paramilitary forces in Pulwama, killing 40 soldiers. The attacker was part of Jaish-e-Mohammed, another Pakistan-based group. India retaliated with an airstrike on Balakot, deep inside Pakistan. In response, Pakistan launched its own air operations. It was the first time since 1971 that Indian and Pakistani air forces engaged each other. Tensions reached a boiling point, yet once again diplomacy and global pressure pulled both countries back from the edge. Despite decades of hostility, there have been moments of hope. The 1972 Simla Agreement, the 1999 Lahore Summit, cricket diplomacy, people-to-people exchanges. But each time peace seemed within reach, something shattered it, whether war, terrorism, or politics. Still, ordinary people on both sides share more than history. They share language, food, music, and dreams of peace. For now, the border remains tense. Diplomacy is fragile. The past looms large. But maybe, just maybe, the future can be different. Because behind every headline, there are human lives, hoping for a day when the guns fall silent and the kites fly freely across the skies.